Well, the first question I want to ask you is why 16 millimeter for this film?
First of all, thanks for having me. I had no idea that I was going to be doing this, so excuse my mouthful of fish tacos. 16 millimeter was, I think, an obvious choice for us if we could get past the producers and the budget. You know, a lot of people think that shooting on film is like extremely expensive, but it isn't really. It's just a little bit more expensive. But we had a lot of help from Kodak, from Panavision, other people. You know, I talk about shooting exclusively on film for about 18 months before I got to this stage. And I also talk about the fact that film is still the best technology that there is. And Lagos and its people deserve to be captured on it. It's how I felt. But there's also sort of an archival quality to film that we really admire, and a lot of the films that we reference, you know, sort of had this timeless quality to it because they were captured on celluloid, and it's something that we wanted to do with Lagos because it's sort of, I think, little considered in movies, and yeah, we wanted to make this long-lasting in some kind of way.
Been in Lagos for a long time, so what does it mean to catch someone up to Lagos, I guess, you know, in a way? One thing you mentioned when we spoke before is that you guys actually made a Pidgin English draft for him. So can you tell me a little about that and working with actors from those two different dynamics?
I think I kind of love mixing everybody together with different experiences. I think in many ways Jude had some catching up to do with the younger actors who are obviously just sort of very in tune with the rhythms of Lagos and the language. So he was learning from them as much as they were from him. But in essence, it's all about preparation. You know, Jude needed to be prepared to get back, you know, back into society, re-immersed into what Lagosian life is like, and the language as well, updated on the language. As he said, we did write a Pidgin English draft for him when he got there. But you know, this was like 2 weeks with him in Obalende, where he gets the jacket. And some of the markets. We watched football games there. We met the original electrician, who a lot of this is based on, a guy that we work with at home. So, you know, it's just about immersing him into the culture. And then with everyone else, it was just really about getting them familiar with the language that we were going to use in this film, and the pace of making this, which is much slower than Nollywood and, you know, and shooting in Nigeria in general, which has to happen fairly quickly just because of budgetary constraints and how difficult it is to plan things. So, you know, prep. Both Temi and Grace were still students when we were shooting this. Grace is the obviously younger sister, played by Cynthia PJ. And she was an accountant student whilst we were shooting. She was 19 or so. Her first major role, Temi's first major role as well. We had an acting coach for both of them, which was really great, and just helping them bond and spending time together and sort of becoming a family. But outside of that, you know, we cast Nollywood actors and theater actors. My cousin's in the movie. I'm in the movie in the background somewhere. Like, it's just like anyone that can do anything. We picked some people up just on the day that we were shooting to, you know, to be extras. But yeah, that's it. Just a melting pot of different experiences, which we, you know, felt would contribute to the overall tapestry of the film.
Next question I have is about the decision to shoot with the distance y'all do. There's something that Chuko mentioned, the idea of like distance providing closeness. And I know a lot of y'all process is like, when it comes to actual production, you're sort of wrangling like the production end, he's sort of working with actors, and y'all sort of converse overseas a lot of in the beginnings of this project. But I guess from working more so on the production end, can you talk about some of those decisions and encouraging that sort of shooting style throughout the film? Because like, you get close-ups, but like select times. And it feels very, very hyper-intentional. So I just wanted you to expound upon that.
You know, a lot of our references were, like films from Edward Yang and Ho Xiaoshan, new Taiwanese cinema. And I think something that they do so beautifully is they managed to capture the spirit of Taipei, I think, in a way that I've never been to Taipei, but I imagine that this is the spirit of Taipei when I watch their movies, a lot of their movies. And we want to try and recreate the same thing back home. I think for us, the idea of being a bit objective in the way we shot the movie was to allow the exoticism of the place to wear off, if you will, and to just let people get into it, immerse themselves in it somehow, and not sort of try and direct where you were looking necessarily, but to just like give you options, you know. So in a lot of the shots, Rosa appears in some parts of Mofe's chapter and vice versa, which is not always inherently obvious on the first watch, but part of it was just to let your eye wander, you know, get familiar with the place and just get into the story. And that was the main reason, really. We didn't want to tell you what and how to feel about things. And I think, you know, life doesn't happen in cuts, right? So, you know, trying to make everything feel as seamless as possible and almost documentary was a big part of holding back a bit, but also allowing you to see Lagos and let Lagos bleed into the scenes that Chuko had written.
In the background, more so in production design and costume design, you mentioned those relationships and how integral they were to building out the film. And actually, these spaces that you see in the film were not sets at all. Like they were not built out at all. Like she built these out from scratch. So I find that really interesting. Can you talk about some of that relationship you had with? Forget the production designer's name, but
yeah. We had a wonderful production designer called Tinsel, who's from Brazil, which is very, I don't know if you know, but Lagos is originally, I guess, a Portuguese colony, and a lot of Lagos Island, or sort of older Lagos, mimics a lot of areas in Rio specifically. You know, that played a big part in getting Thais on the project. I think she was able to immerse herself in the society pretty effortlessly, and was constantly in the markets, constantly sort of buying new things and trading them for, you know, older things that other people had, much to many people's confusion. But she spent about 5-6 weeks on ground visiting people, spending a lot of time with the neighbors in the complex that we were shooting in, and just taking notes and making local friends, and all of that fed into what she did in the production design, which is absolutely phenomenal. She had a wonderful set dresser as well called Suja, and they did incredible character work, you know, getting into these people, their lives, speaking a lot with the crew. They had a completely Nigerian crew that informed a lot of their decisions. And then Daniel Obasi, who's a costume designer, is sort of like, I don't know what he is, like a wonder kid or something. You know, he's like mini genius. He was 23 when we shot this. He just graduated from the University of Lagos. He taught himself everything from the internet, and is now a photographer shooting for, like, you know, Vogue Portugal and all kinds of incredible things. But, you know, his relationship with Tinsel was also very, very important. They were constantly in communication with each other about the color palette, about what it meant, for example, to wear purple in the burial scenes, and how that's celebratory and regal. You know, bringing that level of detail to the color of the film was really important for us, and having Daniel as a collaborator was just beautiful, and a lot of that work bled into the production design. But yeah, she made a lot of those sets. Rosa's home, Mofe's home, all of those are completely by scratch. Those are completely empty rooms, and the factory, the big junction boxes and everything, that was all Thaisa. But then the rest of the place, the factory was owned by a friend of a friend. It's an actual printing press. We inserted ourselves in the bigger stuff, and then the little things she completely built from scratch. I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I was rambling.
No, you definitely answered my question. And the last question is just like, as a filmmaker, what did the experience of this film leave you with that you feel like, you know, that was like, damn, like I didn't think about the medium in this way prior to, or I didn't think about working with actors this way or working with my crew in this way. And that might be a larger question, might be another conversation later this weekend, but.
Yeah, that might be too deep for now. 10 o'clock. Man, I went to film school, and I feel like making this movie was like, you know, like film school plus 5 years. You know, it was. I learned a lot. I think about the importance of just collaborating with people that you trust and close friends. You know, our DP got malaria one day before we started shooting, and a friend of mine, there was a gaffer that came out to help out. She just stepped in and shot for the first week. There's just like we were very nimble in that way. A very, very close collaborator of mine came out and was an on-set editor. I think ultimately I know that I just want to continue making movies back home, I think, more than anything else. Like I think after making this and, you know, doing the festival circuit and going around, it's just sort of like, I felt like, yeah, there's really a lack of films from this part of the world. You know, I wanted to do this because I found foreign cinema and connected with it in a way that made me realize that, you know, making stuff back home was viable, that people would kind of get us, you know what I mean? They would, you know, see us as humans as well. Like if I'm able to do that myself for, like, I don't know, Italian film from the 50s, you know, you should be able to do that for a Nigerian film now. So I think for me it's just, I think I'm just hungry to make more with people back home, and I'm really hungry for our industry to grow. I think, you know, releasing this in Nigeria, a lot of people back home, you know, being used to Nollywood and Hollywood big blockbuster films, have been sort of scratching their heads like, oh wow, I didn't know films like this could exist, or that, you know, you can slow things down on screen and you'll still, you know, get something. Which is the same experience I had when I was like 25 or something, when I saw Bicycle Thieves. I'm very new to this, you know. You know, what you talk about like, you know, finding a new language in cinema, that's also something that we're thinking about a lot, you know, breaking from Western norms and traditions, because, you know, I don't know, the Socratic method of discourse doesn't really apply to us, you know, like we engage with things in a very, very different way, you know, our communities are set up very differently. There's a lot of work to do, man. I think that's the main thing. I think that's what I realized doing this, you know, that there's still so much to be said, so much to try, so much to, you know, explore. I talk a lot about.
Also, Arie and this like amazing work. This film is, I've told you that it's one of my favorites in the festival this year. Yeah, I just can't say too much about it. This is like my third or fourth time watching it, so this says a lot.